right,
And
Shawn
such a
Finch.
good looking one too. Sorry.
Gorgeous. You're so handsome, by the way. Very
People are
hot.
hating me. They're hating my look. They're like, think I'm all plastic surgeryized. And I'm like, oh my God, other than doing my chin 3 times because I hated it since birth, I have not done shit. Like no Botox, no fillers, no pulling, tucking, eye job, nose job. It's like, okay, if you hate my look, you just hate my look. Like, what can I do? It's like his
Wait.
face doesn't move enough.
What about veneers? Have you done? Because I'm reading. There's all these stories. I don't know if you've seen online how veneers ruined my life. Like it's a whole thing. People are talking. Did you get veneers?
Yes, no, for sure. I actually knocked out a tooth in Spain with doing this, which I am addicted to. And something happened where something hit my coffee cup, and my coffee cup, the ceramic, crashed into my tooth. And it hurt really bad, but I thought, oh, everything's fine. And then it was kind of infected, and I thought everything was fine. And then I went to a dentist, and they go, oh no, it like fractured all the way across. You're gonna have to like deal. So that was the the start of veneers. And no, not actually the start. I mean, I've always done something with my smile, but yeah. So, but I love like shiny teeth. I mean, that's so Hollywood, right? Like you can't have ugly, bad teeth. Like, this isn't Britain. No, I'm going to get the British hate.
Oh, well, bring it on. I know. I agree with you, right? I am obsessed. I always said I'm going to move to Hollywood and get the chiclet teeth. Like I want the chiclet white. They don't get stained with They don't get stained, right? Veneers.
They actually, you can F them up. Yeah, it is a thing. Yeah. It's not like you got a free ride forever with that, because coffee is a strong mistress, and she wants to hang out.
I'm with you. I'm addicted to coffee and tea. So, all right. Well, shoot. Then I was going to get veneers, but if that doesn't cure my
But
teeth,
it's going to help. I mean, it's definitely better than just your normal teeth. I mean, it's less porous. But I think you have to do that stuff every like 10 years, like rotating a boob job or anything else. Like, you only get so much traction, and then you got to do another round.
isn't that the part about plastic surgery they don't really disclose? Because I get Botox, and then you hear from them. You're like, well, once the Botox stops really working, then you've got to go to filler. You know what I mean? It keeps going. To your point, you get the boobs, you think, all right, I'm done, but then not really. You got to change them out. The teeth the same way. It's constant.
And technology changes, right? People started off, oh, I want silicone. Now I want saline. Now I want, like under the muscle, over the muscle, through the woods to grandmother's house. And it keeps, like things go, keep progressing. So what are you going to do? You got to keep rolling with the times. Otherwise people go like, is that a tramp stamp? It's like, oh yeah, that's not the right place anymore. Now it's, in the middle of my chest. And they're like, oh, you're from the, 90s, the 2000s, the 220s, whatever.
And it started out on my shoulder. I know. It really, you relate. Well, Shawn Finch, I'm honored to have you here. 90 Day Fiancé, Love in Paradise, but you actually have been a huge star for many years in Hollywood behind the scenes as a celebrity hairstylist, stylist. I mean, years ago, you opened your own, stylist or hair cutting operation here in Beverly Hills. You've worked on major shows, The Voice, on sitcoms, I mean, with every major star. So what was it like going from behind the scenes to the star, becoming in front of the camera?
Well, I'm obviously used to how it works. So, and I actually have a degree in communications and broadcasting. So I always thought I knew I was going to do hair, but I thought, what could I do to get myself a leg up over the other people doing hair and television and film? I'm like, oh, I'll get a degree in the industry and communication. And the reality of, and anybody that goes to a hairdresser would know this, like half of my job is psychology. So I'm a therapist or a hairapist, as well as, doing, making you look beautiful. And hey, it's better money spent than, just $200 to see a therapist. You actually walk out looking better as well as, mentally better. So, um, yeah, my only curiosity with being in front of the camera is I'm crazy private. Like I'm not an Instagrammer and I'm not a poster and I'm not a poser and I'm not a hashtag blessed and I don't, like it. Uh, and yet it's the world that is the world now. I mean, I want to pick up a phone and still call people like, hey, how are you doing? What's going on? So I'm a grandpa in the way of, kind of pushing back of wanting to be private. But once I signed on to this show, I knew that all was going to change. So I wasn't so concerned about would I be nervous in front of the camera as much as I was concerned about, wow, this is a hot button topic and I'm going to be a very private person that's going to turn into a very public person. Am I ready for that?
Yeah. Did any of your celebrity friends give you advice? I mean, I know you've worked with Nicolette Sheridan and her ex is Harry Hamlin. Did she say, "Oh, call Lisa Rinna, my ex's wife of 20 years, like she'll have advice for you"? Did anyone?
I know both of those ladies and Harry, and I've worked with all three of them. So oddly enough, but that being said, I didn't tell anybody, not even my family or friends, what I was doing. So no one knew. And I still haven't reached out. And I'm friends in life with Nicolette and love her to pieces, but I haven't called her and said, are you watching me on TV? Do you know I'm on TV? Are you whatever? And I'm the guy that people have come to me and said, my actors, like, oh, they're offering me, to be on Bravo. And I'm like, are you sure? Because, that might not be a good wheelhouse for you. So I'm like, you might want to second think that. I just think they have more to lose, right? Like, especially when you have a persona. I don't have a persona of anything. I actually call myself Sad Sack Shawn on the show because I'm always like, in the middle of some heartfelt, hurt, which is real, but my personality is very sarcastic, flippant, funny. So when I think of myself as funny out there. I'm going to get cancel cultured in like 2 seconds. I'm always going to say something weird and off the cuff that people are going to take the wrong way. But the show is so different and it's such a serious topic and it's such a serious part of my life that I'm watching myself, and who watches themselves be serious? I mean, you watch yourself like, oh, smile, oh, you're in life and fun. I wasn't prepared to watch myself in sorrow, but here we are.
So,
Sad Sack Shawn. Hashtag bust.
okay, see, I feel like if I say that 3 times fast, I'll be canceled. So I'm just gonna go with Shawn because I'm
It's
too.
easier. I don't want to give myself a bad moniker, but I mean, I'm willing to help the people out. They need something, to like rob the knob. I mean, I'm trying to like, there's another one. Oh, Miss Debbie was dating who.
Oh
Uh,
God, I know. The
the
latest guy.
Romeo or
I know.
it rhymes, but it's like I got to get all the rhyming people together.
I'm still stuck on Osama that, he's long gone,
Uh,
but I
oh
know.
yes.
So it sounds like for you then joining the show where you didn't tell a lot of your famous friends that you've worked with that you were going to be on reality TV. So it sounds like it was much deeper for you to be on this. Like it wasn't because a lot, the thing now with reality TV is a lot of people feel like people go on to promote themselves, promote their brands. So it
Nope.
sounds like it was deeper for you.
I uh it was about the relationship, and at the time that I was considering the show, the relationship was different than what actually got aired. So I was with Douglas, who I fell in love with, and we were in Spain, and I helped Douglas discover this kind of part of himself, which is, Aaliyah, who I perceived as a persona, somebody that we could go out and doll up. And so kind of more non-binary. I'm like, oh, I'm with somebody non-binary. And oh, how interesting that you could be with like almost like both genders. And I thought, oh, I'm getting the best of all the worlds. And it seems to be, such a topic right now. And like, what's a boy and what does a boy do and what's a girl and what's a girl do? I mean, all these things that are getting blended. And I thought, well, I think maybe for people that are really more narrow-minded about this subject, that it would help people go, okay, they're not hurting anybody. Like, oh, they're fun, they're nice, they're good people. Maybe we can roll with this. And then once we started filming, Douglas said there was no more Douglas and it was only Aaliyah. And now we had an issue regarding how to let somebody who's transitioning go. And I wasn't thinking that was my story, but here we were, and it was happening with the cameras rolling, and I agreed to do it. So I just, took a deep breath and jumped in the pool.
Yeah, for people that obviously people come to my show for TLC stuff, and I'm a huge TLC fan. But for people that don't know, you really had this groundbreaking storyline. You have it going on season 4. And it was that Douglas, right, your at the time boyfriend, you two were dating, decides, right, he's trans, he's going to transition. All this is being shot, and you two are working it out as he is now Aaliyah.
Yeah.
I think it's the first time we've ever seen a relationship like that on TV, right?
Yeah. And the part about that I found interesting, and maybe the part of it that, as much as it pained me emotionally to kind of go through this like loss because I was losing Douglas. I wasn't like doing the, oh, I've got everybody now, Douglas, Aaliyah, and like I'm on a 3-way, but it's only 2 people. So it was weird. I didn't know I would feel like that until I was feeling like that, this kind of sorrow. And I thought, wow, this is the first time I think I've seen, even though it's me, some where you're not just watching the person that's transitioning, like, let's say Chaz Bono or, Caitlyn or something, where it's just really about them, right? This happens to be about how that affects primary relationships, the partner, which I don't think we see a lot of being represented, right? Because these things have ripple effects to other people and family members and whatever, and it's
Yeah.
interesting to watch people go through their struggle. I think, but who knows?
No, I think it's super interesting. And I guess how did Aaliyah change? Because, to your point, like Caitlyn and Chris, right, Jenner, who we famously saw, but we never really, I'm sure behind closed doors it was different, but on TV, the way it was always portrayed is Caitlyn had kind of already made that decision and was doing these things unbeknownst to them, really. They'd had some inklings, but she wasn't
Right.
really disclosing it. How does a person change when they are disclosing it that they are becoming trans? I mean, did Aaliyah become more feminine somewhat? You know what I'm saying? It is complicated, right?
Right. I think the thing that I noticed for myself was when somebody is not living their true self, in this case,
Mm.
with Douglas, he was kind of more reserved, quiet, not as expressive. But I think it's because you're living a whole life of being repressed about who you are, like keeping everything kind of bottled up. When I first introduced the wig and the, like, let's play in this my wheelhouse, the transformation I saw in kind of happiness and joy made me so happy. Like, oh wow, like you're really like a different person in this moment. And somebody that was way more outgoing, comfortable in their shell, like the attention, like did it the complete opposite. So um so then that becomes the difference, right? Like now I'm with a superstar, and before I was with somebody who was just very quiet and still. So it translates in my world more than just an aesthetic.
Yeah. What is okay? So we know in the heterosexual, I find all this so fascinating. We know in the heterosexual world, right? There's a lot of judgment if someone's spouse becomes trans and they stay. There's a lot. I'm wondering in the gay community, is it the same way? Is it, you know what I'm saying? Like, or is it less judgment of a partner when you think it's two gay men and then one of them decides to transition? Is the community more accepting, or is it like the heterosexual world in ways where it's like, oh, this is not always so
Yeah.
accepted?
I think if someone was to say the best part, but the best part about being in the world of the gay community is, when I've been in relationships with another man, the role play is so large. Like sometimes you're my brother, sometimes you're my buddy, sometimes you're the dad, sometimes you're the kid, sometimes like you sometimes you're the girl, sometimes like there's just all you're kind of playing out a lot of different roles because now you're not stuck in you can only be a man and this is what men do. You take out the garbage, you make the money. Like somebody's not giving you a list of what is the man. And so those roles are already gone. And then you wind up being in the community and you see people that are transgender. So you get to know other human beings that are going through that. So your awareness is more broadened. And in my case, I was married to a woman. So it wasn't like I had the, oh, I don't like women, ick factor, So it was probably, I think it's probably, to answer your question, like more accepted because there's more experience around it and
Yeah.
more openness to role play.
You have such an amazing story. As you talked about, you were married to a woman. You have 3 kids, right?
Yeah. My kids are all older than my partner.
How are they taking that?
I don't really know because I didn't really talk to them about any of this either. So I'm kind of like,
They're, like, flipping through the channels one day, and they're like, "Wait a minute, is that dad?" Like,
my daughter literally texts me and goes, I like your sweater. I mean, this is a true story. And I'm like, what do you mean I don't have time for this. I'm doing something else. I'm busy. She's just jerked me around. And then the next day she's like, you didn't respond. And I'm like, about what? Like you said some weird thing about a sweater. She goes, you were wearing a sweater the other day. It was this color. It was like, it was giving me Mr. Rogers vibe. And I'm like, how do you know that? Yes. Oh, because TMZ or somebody was filming you. So it's weird to I don't know. Like I'm losing your question, but that experience was shocking for me to be like, huh?
no,
Like
I
I'm in
love
this new space.
like, you stayed true to at the start of this, you said that you really told no one you were going on TV, like, you stayed true to it. You didn't tell your kids.
The only one that knew where all the bodies were buried and what everything was going on as far as like just my personal life, even like not even about the show, but just about like dating and who and what and where am I going and what am I doing was my mom, who's
Wow.
amazing. And like, so she's the person that's like, my superhero. So I tell her everything. So she had a inkling, of what was happening because we were talking about my life, not so much about the show, but about what was happening in my life. So she knew of Douglas, she knew of Aaliyah showing up. She knew of Aaliyah then becoming a permanent residence and all of that. So,
I mean, Shawn, you've lived so many lifetimes like all of us do, right? Throughout our lives. But I mean, what does it mean to you? I mean, I love that we're doing this interview during Pride Month, but it must have been difficult to be married, have 3 kids, and to be your authentic self, to tell them that you were gay. I mean, even we've come so far, right, in the gay community. I have 2 gunkles, and they were married to their spouses for years. I mean, my one gunkle who passed away, he was like 82 when he died a couple years ago, was a principal in Alexandria, Virginia for years. And, he literally had a beard. Like they would talk to us about, they could not believe in the early aughts, like how far the gay community had come because I grew up in a small little Maine town. And my uncle's house was, like, the place to go. Like, everybody my senior year, we all went there to party. I mean, they also bought us booze, but, they were very popular. But they never experienced gay hate. They were like, "When did the world change? This is wild." I mean, your stories were so brave even today because things have progressed, but yet things haven't in some ways. I mean, what was it like to be married to a woman with kids and then come out?
Well, I guess for me, I'm not I'm not into lying, so that's not my wheelhouse. So if somebody asked me something that I didn't want to answer, I guess I could just say I don't want to answer that or steer the conversation somewhere else. But I never bluntly said, made some blanket statement. So when my kids were growing up and I was with my wife and I was solely only with my wife, there was no, cheating, experimenting. And I had had boyfriends and girlfriends before we met. I would, like we would watch a movie and it would be, Brad Pitt would be in it. And I'd be like, he's so hot, like I wouldn't make it like, oh, bro, that's, oh, guys, it was always kind of like, oh, he's hot, he's got a nice butt, whatever, whatever. And then, so they kind of grew up not being really, you know, specifically judgy or role play or whatever. So I don't think they had as hard of a time when it was like, okay, I'm dating men because they were kind of like, oh, okay. I mean, they actually, when I told them, they thought I was joking because I'm such a jokester. They didn't believe me. But then I was like, no, I'm not actually joking this time. So, roll with it. Like, this is happening.
Okay, so it wasn't in your family, it wasn't a huge, shift because your wife had known that you had dated men prior. So it wasn't like I like that too. It really wasn't a huge.
Well, to be clear with her, it's like it just didn't come up as a question. For me, it was kind of like she never asked me, I never talked about it. And since I wasn't intending to be in a relationship with another woman or another man, like that it was an exclusive relationship with her, then it was like a non-issue because like, that's how it was. We were together for 14 years and there was no, like, I wasn't going like, ooh, I need to go find a dude, sort of feeling. I was fine in the relationship. I mean, we had our problems, but it wasn't that.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, how like with relationships, I'm sure, relationships are challenging, right? When there's not cameras there. So with you and Aaliyah, I mean, did the cameras, do you think really helped you guys through her transition? Do you think it hurt you more? I mean,
I probably am a great talker about everything of life, but I'm not a great talker about my own sadness, pain, something. So to kind of have to be on camera and talking about not only that there was grief there, but why and how and what, and like really kind of dive into the deeper ends of that and also communicating that to the world was triggering for me. Like I think it was more upsetting for me than if the cameras had not been there.
mm,
So I think it was, you were to think they'd make a nice barrier like that. You would be like, oh, I can't really be totally into my life because there's a camera. But for me, it was the opposite because there was questions being asked that forced me to dive deeper into my own personal feelings instead of just be like, oh, well, I'm going to just gloss that over.
I bet. And for somebody like yourself that really is like a master in therapy, did that piss you off that producers are also therapists? So they were like digging, like they knew your triggers. I'm sure for you it must have been very irritating. You're like, I'm the fucking therapist. I've been doing this for 20 years with every Hollywood star. I'm the vault. I know all the secrets. That had to be hard.
I just feel like at the end of the day, for me, because I'm not non versed in this world, right? I mean, I've worked in reality TV, whatever, that I knew that was part of it going in. So, I had to like talk myself from the beginning into like, okay, you're a very quote unquote somewhat private person. I'm not posting. People don't know a lot about. My kids don't even know a lot about what I'm doing, where I am, who I'm seeing, whatever. So now it's going to be the flip. And are you prepared for the flip? And so I guess, there's always going to be surprises to that, like, oh, okay, so now I'm like doing this or that or the other thing, like, but it's part of the quote unquote, world of reality, I guess.
TLC loves to take TLC talent and then they appear on many shows. They go Single Life, they go Happily Ever After. Do you see yourself being a TLC franchisor here? Are we launching a cameo, honey? Are we going to be on Single Life? Other way? Where are we going?
Well, I think I'm boring. Like, I think in real life, I'm really exciting and like really fun and really interesting and really dynamic and really gorgeous and really cool and like everybody's best friend. But I think on camera, like I'm, boring. Like, I don't think I'm like my personality isn't showing. I think, but maybe other people would disagree. But I'm like, oh, Sad Sack Sean, here we are, so I'm serious, I'm listening, but it's a serious topic. And I'm not Jasmine and Gina, where I'm like, so I'm not taking a knife and putting it to Aaliyah's throat. So I don't know how much fun there is for the audience to, watch me and us go through life. I think Aaliyah is perfect for the franchise because she's dynamic and beautiful and ever changing her look and her outfit and her hair. And so it gives somebody, whether they love it or hate it, something to focus on. And I think on all these franchises, as much as people like to say, oh, I hate somebody like a Jasmine, they're glued. Like, she's one of my favorites because I want to see her go crazy. So that's part of the viewing pleasure. And I think it's funny to read comments where people are like, you need that person off the show. What are you doing? She's bad. And then on the same token, every week, like, can't wait to see. And probably if she doesn't do something crazy, they're like, oh, that was such a boring episode. So I don't know if I bring enough spark drama to the plate to make me like a mima maka. So but maybe if I
Hi.
start fighting with the other cast members about how
Yes.
crazy they are and get into internet feuds and start taking off my clothes and wearing a thong, then we could work with something there.
Yes.
So give the people what they don't want. I'm just trying to be like, hey, he's a nice guy, and he's having this life struggle, and I'm hoping it's interesting, but I don't know if it's you know dynamic enough. Who knows? We'll see. To be determined.
TBD. Let's talk a minute about your incredible Hollywood career and everything that happens in Hollywood and hair. I mean, do you think all your years of doing this, by the way, do you think that a hair piece is ever a good idea? Like John Travolta, you know how for years John tried to pretend like he had hair with that toupee? Do you ever think that men rocking toupees is a good idea?
Yeah, I mean, William Shatner has toupee and he looks amazing. So I think
You
if
mean,
it's done.
I'm sorry, you mean at 90 years old, honey, that ain't real?
What? No, he just got a full head of hair. And if you look back throughout all time, you'll see that full head of hair has been logged and chronicled for all time. But he's a fun guy and a great guy, and I love that his hair and whatever. So it depends on, I guess, the person. And hey, I'm like watching these new kids doing amazing stuff with boy wigs. Like I watched one the other day, and he was powder pink hair, full wig, looked amazing, did great work. So I think it's inspiring once again in a way of like role playing, like, oh, you're a boy, you can't wear a wig. It's like, really, is that what it is? It's like, I'm like, he was rocking that thing and looked amazing. So it's like, let's just change people's minds about what is cool and what isn't, because I don't know, all of his stuff was amazing. So I'm like, you go, girl, boy.
You go, babe. You famously worked on The Voice and Adam Levine stylist. Did Adam ever gift you a Ferrari? He's a notorious Ferrari collector. I mean, you've made him look pretty darn handsome for many years. Have we gotten a
I
Ferrari?
no Ferrari, but I do affectionately say that I wound up buying a home in Lake Arrowhead to get away from LA. And I called it the house that Adam built because, like it was basically, I worked so much with him that, just taking that money and putting it away for, to buy something that made my life worth living. So all the hours and all the stuff that was going on was like well worth it. But I love him. He's great and really smart, funny. And I love Bahati too. So
Oh my God. I mean, yeah, and I hear it just an incredible businessman behind the scenes. I mean, I think I've read something like they've made most of their money by real estate, even more than The Voice. I mean, he's a pretty
that would
well-rounded guy, it seems.
that would make sense. I think his dad's a businessman, so I think he has a good chain of people around him that are, helping him, guiding him, I would assume. So
Did you style him for the Super Bowl? I'm asking because I'm wondering, when you have huge moments like that, when
mhm,
100 million, and even The Voice, I mean, 30 million people are watching.
yeah.
Are you
I
nervous?
did not do the Super Bowl, and I'm Super Bowly happy that I did not, because I think that came with a lot of controversy, and I didn't have to be a part of that. So yeah, so I was happily not involved.
Over the years, what's been the most controversial? Now, again, you're coming into the limelight. But I mean, you've always been with it, but now you're the star. But what's been the most controversial hair moment you've ever been a part of?
Oh, controversial. I don't think I've done anything that I can think of that was controversial and in like a negative way. I've done a lot of epic things that I can't believe I've done that are like, am I pulling this off? I mean, I did something with Missy Elliott's team that like I thought, oh, I don't is this gonna be my worst nightmare and I'm gonna be an epic fail and it's gonna be televised internationally or is and on live TV, or is this gonna work out okay? So I've had like a lot of sweating bullet moments, but somehow like I mean, I don't think anything's gone like super crazy. Though I do remember one of my team uh, put a bobby pin in some girl's hair on The Voice, and it slid out, and it hung on the strand of the hair and was just dangling while she was performing live. And I was like, "Oh my god, no!" And
Oh my God.
but it wasn't my doing, and I didn't know it was there until I was watching it, and then I was like, of course, judging it along with all of America. But oddly, I didn't get any even weird flack from that I know of. But of course, once again, I've been such an awful social media person that I need to like, I wouldn't know if I got the hate if it happened. I'd be in my mind like, oh, everything's good.
That's so
So
smart. Well, I guess maybe the question should have been, what's the most famous hair moment you've had? Because you've obviously styled Missy Elliott for whether it's been music videos or world tours. What's the most famous hair moment you've been a part of?
well, I didn't do Missy's hair, but Missy was appearing on a show that she wanted all of her dancers around her to have long, colorized, braided wigs. And as they were dancing around on the stage, she wanted at one blink of an eye for the hair to fly off the head and go up into the air and disappear. And then the girls would all then be bald. So I had to figure out how to make that work And I'm like, can I really actually figure it out? And I wound up having, I mean, like things that in the world that I do, like you would normally go, well, the bald cap is a makeup issue. Well, brought in a special team of people to do the bald caps, but then they were like, no, like we don't want to do it. It was too much. The girls had too much of their own hair to deal with. And I'm like, oh my God, now I'm having to like literally invent a way to smack down the girl's head to make them look bald before then the makeup artist put a bald cap on top of it. Like, but it was already like pre-bald looking so that they had less work. And I'm like, how am I going to do that? And all the girls were like, I don't want any heat, thermal product, this, that, the other thing. I'm like, well, what am I doing? Licking it down and hoping for the best? I don't, like, what are my tools here? No heat, no thermal, no product, no non-natural. It's like, okay.
Oh my God.
So,
That sounds like an HGTV show here, honey. Like, here, can you build this house with one hammer? I mean, it's like, no, I need a lot more shit. Thank you.
exactly. And, but I made it happen. God love me. It worked.
Look, I am obsessed with your career. I have a couple last questions for you. I'd also read you were a part of Victoria's TV show on Nickelodeon with Dan Schnieder. And I mean, there's a lot there over the past couple of months. I mean, were you called to be a part of Quiet on Set, Doc?
Yeah. Yeah. They contacted me and I didn't do it because once again, I felt like, I'm not in the public eye. I don't want to be in the public eye. I don't want to be part of that. And so I watched it recently. So I saw it. And just a FYI, Victoria Justice is like the most amazing person ever, like one of my all-time favorite people to ever work with, nicest person ever. And I also really enjoyed being around Jeanette, who I think had a hard time with being on all those shows, but I haven't read her book yet, but I bought it.
What about, I mean, what is your take? You lived it. I mean, what do you think of Brian Peck? Did you work with Brian? Did you see anything that you thought was strange?
I mean, obviously, all that went on behind closed doors, and because no one would say who or what. Just people would like, oh, they're not here anymore or whatever. And in our business, like people getting fired at a whim or not being asked back is huge. So people are constantly being like quote unquote replaced. Um, yeah, yeah. So I didn't dive any deeper, but I will say it was the first time I did a TV show that I didn't feel like I was working with peers. Like, oh, we're friends and we hang out. I felt like that I was working with my kids and I felt super protective of them as kids. So I'm glad I didn't know all of that because I would have like had a breakdown. So
Right? I asked too. I had Drake Bell. I had the exclusive interview with him after Quiet on Set Doc. So he talked to me and actually he said really good things about Dan Snyder. He said that Dan was one of the few people that did reach out to him and kind of, said whatever I can do to help you, and said that he wasn't aware that Brian was abusive towards him. I mean, you worked with Dan. How was Dan to you?
I mean, I think I stay my thing about working on anything is I don't want to see, talk, hear, do anything with production. I want to stay like invisible. My feeling is if I don't get called into an office, if I don't get called into a meeting, if I don't get into some other room with the people that are the producers, directors, whatever, then I'm doing my job. Like, no news is good news. It's when you get like too caught into that that see and are involved in trouble. So I just stayed out of that world as much as possible. Um, so I don't have anything bad to say about Dan, but like I think people in that position, they start like stepping over lines that they shouldn't step over. That's not part of their job just because they can. Whether that's, you when you watch the show, you hear the people talk about the women massaging during the day, and that was happening. I watched that happen. He would have hair people cutting his hair during the day, like all the things that you could get done because you're who you are. But at the end of the day, is that like that's not actually in your job description, like so. No one, so I don't know if that's something that needs to change with Hollywood, that, like people are professionals. They're not there to like service you. They're there to do a job.
Yeah.
And that job is for the actors, is for the whatever that they're doing. I mean, if you're a female writer, you're not a massage therapist. So like, let's just keep it in the lane that you're in. So, no matter who it is, Dan or whatever, like, it's a little abuse of power, no matter if it's a little abuse or a big abuse, right? So
Yeah. One last question on this. When you watched the documentary, I mean, were you shocked? Like, were there moments like you were like, "Oh my god, I can't," like you said, you kind of kept your head down when you were there and, did your job. But I mean, were you like, "Oh my god, I could see that happening," or "I had no idea this was going on"? Like, what were some shocking moments, or did you watch it and go, "Yeah, this is like Hollywood. I believe everything."
yeah, I did not believe what these kids were saying. On the same token, it's like when you're an adult and you're watching things getting filmed and you are knowing that it's like a double entendre or whatever it is, like that it's like, you know, perceived by the kid maybe one way, but perceived by an adult in another. It's like where that humor comes from, or if it's appropriate. I think everybody's now so much more sensitive. I think it's a timing issue. I mean, it wasn't the Me Too time yet, and it wasn't, like people are just getting more and more aware, like, hey, that's not cool, or that's racist, or that's homophobic, or that's all the things. And so, we're all hopefully moving forward and being more aware. Does that make for better TV, like funnier TV? I don't know, because some of my favorite movies are the ones that are crazy, inappropriate. Like I love Airplane, and it's just one bad thing after another. I love Dave Chappelle, and he takes it out on the gays, but he also takes it out on everybody. So it's like if you're a comedian, I feel like you have a license as long as you're effing with everybody. Like just you can't just pick a group and be just a hater of one. If you're a hater of all, then I don't see how we can get too mad about it, because it's comedy, and yes, at somebody else's expense. But I don't know. I can roll with that. It doesn't hurt my feelings. But I think we're moving forward. I just don't know like how sensitive we're going to be. Like I feel like there's going to be that reckoning too. Like, oh, I don't. You winked at me. I'm harassed. Or yeah, like so. It's like really, uh, like I
Yeah.
had a poster up, or a picture, not even a poster, on a wall of a model and an advertisement that was on every billboard in Los Angeles. And somebody came into my hair room and went and complained about the picture. Like, but it had like I'm feeling, an unsafe working environment. But it's like, so that can happen. I took the picture down, but I was like, okay, this picture with this gorgeous hair and this gorgeous model is on every huge billboard driving down the street. But now, like, that's not a thing. So, like, it could go to me a little far. Is this really like, jarring for you? Or is this just, oh, I can make this jarring and I can get something out of it? So there's also people that take, advantage of that too, right?
Isn't it so hard to know? I know, because, you're always, do you adjust if one person is offended, or do you wait till 5? I know, it really is hard, right? And it's like a slippery slope in some ways, because then, to your point, everything can be seen as offensive, right? And it's
Yeah.
just human nature that in certain situations, people are gonna say things that they don't mean in the moment, or they get nervous and they say something, or they get nervous and make a hand gesture. You know what I mean? It is
Yeah.
hard. We're all trying to figure out. Yeah.
And things are taken out of context. I mean, even on the show, I talk about my feeling about Douglas. And one of the things I ramble into, the last word I used was, like, oh, I'm missing this and this and this and this. And the last word I said, I think, was like, oh, that Douglas was fearful or whatever. And that somehow I missed that. Like I'm saying, I missed these things. And that was one of the things I included in my just blah, blah, blah. And that came back to haunt me. But if you knew why I said it, which was like when we were hanging out and traveling all over the world, and Douglas hadn't been exposed to all these places and things. I mean, he had these dreams of like, one day I want to go into Hermes. And I was like, we walked by it one day and I'm like, let's go, it's here. And he said, no, I can't. I'm like, what do you mean you can't? It's like, no, I don't belong there. Like I couldn't buy anything there. It's like, well, you could still go in there. No, it's impossible. And I'm like, impossible what? Like, no, it's not impossible. Okay, I have money. You're with me. You can be my, I'll take you, I'll protect you. And I thought it was like endearing that, like that I could help him like get over it. Like, this is what people do. People window shop. People don't just always go into a store and buy everything out and whatever. It's like they can't force you to not be here. So don't be afraid. So I felt like I was helping, moving him forward in life. But because I used the word that this fear thing, they were like, oh, I want him in the corner, cowling, shaking while I beat him with a stick. It's like, oh yeah, this is like what I love the best. It's like, no, this isn't where this is coming from. This is a whole different thing. But I got, hammered for it. It's like, okay.
I know.
So
You never know. Like, to your point, things are so much taken out of context. You really have no idea when you shoot a show now how people are going to perceive it. And what you think is the most genuine, moment can be completely construed as anything, dominance or racism or fear, whatever it is, it's
right.
really, yeah, we're all, I mean, I think that's why you're so smart to not be online. Who the fuck cares? You know what? You lived your authentic self, right? Who the fuck
I
cares?
would, yeah, I'm more in the line of like I love what you're doing. Like, I would love to do what you're doing because I love to talk to people. I love to gossip with them. I like to hear their experience. I mean, it's the hairdresser in me. That's what I do. So it's weird for me to be the one blah 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 about myself. I'm like, like I'm itching to do the other way. And so in my twisted head, but I also know I'd be super inappropriate. Like, I would just be cancel cultured immediately because I would say off the wall stuff, and people would be like immediately like, oh, you know.
Well, first of all, you can come co-host with me anytime. I'm canceled every 6 months. I'm currently being canceled because I went to, do you watch Vanderpump Rules?
Yes, I'm a friend with Elisa, but go on.
Okay, well, I went to something about her sandwich shop. And I stood there for 4 hours thinking I was gonna get a sandwich. Honey, they closed the doors in our faces at 4 o'clock, never communicated that we were never gonna get a sandwich, never handed out a sample. Now, what grand opening have you been to? You have been to so many businesses. Aren't they always, there's like music, they're giving out a free t-shirt.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, the long and the short is I did a review online that was not very nice. And you should go and look at my Instagram. It's like 600,000 views and 4,000 comments of how much I'm a Karen and I should be canceled and I'm a bitch and I had it out for them and everything in your mother. So you can come co-host anytime. I'm canceled all the time. Please let me know when you're in LA and we'll discuss. But yeah, if you come on this show, we're going to talk about everybody. Yes.
Well, I mean, I mean, that's got to be part of like they. You can't. There's no winning, but don't people want to be entertained also and like kiki and talk and thrash about? I mean, like I'm not going to sit there and not say, somebody's rubbing me the wrong way and that I'm like going to make fun of them or whatever. But I don't know. Like, can they really? Can't. I mean, I don't know.
Look, you got to
Can they
come on my
cancel you?
show. No, you can't be canceled anymore. But you might, because you have like a real career. I mean, I'm just
Well, I'm definitely like thinking like once when I started doing this, I was like, oh, I wonder if I'll be unemployable because now people on my IMDb will look me up and they'll see that I'm a cast member on a show, like or have seen the show, and I'm like, oh, well, that rubbed them the wrong way as far as like, oh, we don't want somebody that doing hair that's also like somehow, we have a thing about or know about or whatever.
Okay, you've got to come back. Let me know when you're in LA. We'll co-host in studio. You must have some good Diddy stories, right? You probably have some good Diddy.
I've never diddied anybody.
Well, that's good. Let's start with that. That's important. That's really. I think that's really all you get canceled for. If you Diddy
But I do
somebody,
call myself Sean Fluffy Combs. That's my sub name. So I might get canceled for that.
I'm obsessed. Okay, Shawn, 90 Day in Paradise, Love in Paradise is the show. I'm getting the wrap up. Love in Paradise.
Right.
Thank you. Please let me know when you're in LA. You're fantastic. I would tell people to follow you on social media, but I've been there and I think you have like 4 photos up, so don't follow.
I'm adding. I'm doing it. Shawn Finch. So follow me. Yes. Go ahead.
We're all following you. Much more success. Please come back and we'll kiki. I can't wait.
All right. Thanks. Okay.
Bye, Shawn.
Bye.
Bye, gorgeous. See ya. Thank you.